You know, I'm right. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, I know you are very excited about our guest today.
I am very, very excited. It is truly an honor because I think right now on our program today, we have quite possibly the biggest and most knowledgeable Pittsburgh sports fan on the planet. He is somebody with extensive media experience, tremendous versatility. He's previously worked as a television writer, most notably at Comedy Central, before it became this watered down, crappy version. It is now kind of like MTV. He's been on air as a sports reporter, hosted his own radio program, several podcasts through the years. He's pretty much stopped everywhere: ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS Sports. He had a very successful 10-year tenure at the NFL and NFL Network. You can currently listen to him on the Extra Points podcast with Cousin Sal, where he gives out winners. He's currently one of the closest friends to one of my closest friends in life, Dave Dameshek. Dave, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this with us.
Hey, sure thing. I appreciate the nice intro, except for one part. How come Nick's not excited to have me on? That's my question, Nick. I'm vain. Didn't you, Joey, didn't your friend Eddie Spaghetti, didn't he tell you, like, just one thing you should know about Dave? He's very vain.
Oh,
and he
vain.
likes, and you know, he's got a real chip on his shoulder. So it's not enough for you to be happy to have him. Nick also, even though he doesn't even know who Dave is, must pretend that he's excited about Dave's company today.
I tried to warn him.
Okay, listen, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I heard that This Is Us was trying to get you on for an episode because it's all about Pittsburgh, and they wanted to get you in for a flashback. Your thoughts?
That's what I hear.
I
know it's funny. I don't know how I watch. This is how weird I am about my love of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's not weird. After all, Rand McNally has named it America's most livable city at least 3 times by my count. And of course, as I've said ad nauseum, and I'll tell it to you guys now, of course, the heroes working in the steel mills in the mid 20th century saved our nation. So if you don't like Pittsburgh and you don't like freedom, so I don't know what to tell you about that, but I like it so much. There's now an HGTV show based in Pittsburgh, you know, where they make over the house. I watch that just because Pittsburgh's in it. I have not gone so far as to see this whatever the show is.
This Is Us.
Yes, I know that there's like Steeler people in it or whatever.
Franco Harris was in it. You'd enjoy it. Terry Bradshaw. How much are you loving the Todd father, Todd Frazier, on the Pirates right now?
It's sad that he comes to Pittsburgh in the state he's in. That's kind of the way it works, though, if you're a Pirates fan. You either get a guy, it's kind of like a piece of fruit from the dollar store. It's either not ripe yet or it was ripe way long in the rear view mirror. You never get it when you really want it. That's kind of the state of being a Pirates fan. We don't have anybody in his prime unless he doesn't belong in the major leagues in the first place. That's why he's on the Pittsburgh Pirates, because he's not worthy of being an actual major league player on an actual major league.
You had McCutchen and Glasnow. You didn't get much for those two guys, though.
Well, that's our way. Yeah, that's what we do. We're basically like it's as though we're running a charitable organization for all the big teams that don't need any help. Like, oh, you're in need of a number one ace starting pitcher. Here you go, New York Yankees. Here's Garrett Cole. You know, like, that's how we do things. We're generous in this way. We pose no resistance when you guys come knocking to take our only valuable pieces.
Yeah, we got quadruple A Pittsburgh Pirates over there. Dave, I got to ask you a question. I have a very close friend of mine who I used to work with, big time Pittsburgh insider. I have to ask you, is Mount Washington a tourist trap? Because I was thinking about going there this summer and kind of spending a weekend there, and I really want to go to PNC Park because after that picture he sent me on opening day, that place is freaking gorgeous. But how do you feel about that?
I feel that, and you'll hear this, you know, Najee Harris just did it last week. The thing that is striking, Mount Washington is nice, is first of all the answer, and there's some decent bars where you can go get a belt and look out over the Three Rivers and the glorious skyline and all of that. But really, you're going to get most of that effect, it happens when you land in the airport, if you fly in, and then you're driving through some lovely green rolling hills, and it's really nice, and you get a sense of the topography that makes Western Pennsylvania the home of so many really tough golf courses because of the, like I say, the undulating hillside. And then you come up to a tunnel and you're like, where are we? This is a city? Like, we're in the middle of nowhere. And you get into this tunnel and you come through on the other side, and there it is, like Mario Lemieux right over my head. He didn't want to get drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 1984. He refused to even put the sweater on at the draft because he said, I don't want to go there. I'm French Canadian. I don't speak English. This is all in French. I'm doing the translated version for you. But he's like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to play in Pittsburgh. They're not good. I want to be on the Habs or get me to the Quebec Nordiques or something like that. And then he made that drive because he was he was a gentleman. So he was like, all right, I better at least meet with them. And so he drove. Came through that tunnel, and everything changed in that moment for 66, as it does for all. And it will for you, Joey. If you ever make that trip, you'll be officially converted onto the right side and understand why Pittsburgh is such a glorious place to spend a weekend or a lifetime.
Yeah, no, I'm truthfully very excited about. It's one of those very on the short list of cities I want to go to, including.
Are the
like
Yanks
Nashville.
there or what? The Metropolitans?
I would love to go for a Yankees game, but it doesn't have to be a Yankees game. I just kind of want to go to visit my friend and kind of just see the city itself because I've heard amazing, amazing things about it. And I've heard great things about the food, but I want to kind of start getting going here. I want to take you back to your childhood because you were probably born at a really, really great time. You got to see so many Pittsburgh legends, and you got to see a bunch of championships. You got to see Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Lynn Swann, Joe Green, the Steel Curtain. You got to see Willie Stargell and those 1979 Pirates winning a championship. You mentioned Mario Lemieux. He's right behind you. You got to see a lot of championships. So at the top, I said you were probably Pittsburgh's biggest sports fan, and I sincerely mean that. So talk us through your childhood and growing up with those teams and becoming a sports fanatic.
Well, I really won the lottery with genes and the people who raised me because my old man was the doctor, one of the doctors, not the orthopedist who's like, oh, that guy has an ACL, rather like the kind of general practitioner that we would have, giving them their physicals before the season. And they have, I have a cough. But what about that kind of doctor to the Penguins and the Pitt football, basketball? So we had season tickets to those, all the Steeler games. I was at the 78 at how old I am. I was at the 78 AFC title game that they beat the Houston Oilers in, and the 79 AFC title game that they beat the Houston Oilers in. So I remember those well and went to one of those World Series games in 79 against the Orioles. But I was really young, so I'm nostalgic about all that where my family's concerned because I remember going to those and watching them as though they were a religious event when the Steelers would play on Sundays on the road, because then we would all gather, my uncles and grandparents, everybody would come over to the house to watch the road games and everything. But it did, to your point, when the lights turned on for me in my sports conscious, I was for me all I knew was, well, my teams win a crazy amount of the time, and then right as you start to really care, when you get to be 10 years old or whatever, when you really start to care, that's when the bottom fell out, and then this created my current weird sense of self-esteem because I grew up under one premise, which was, well, my teams always win. So, but all of a sudden, once the lights turned on for me, I was like, wait, what happened? The Steelers stink, and they have Mark Malone as their QB, and Pop Stargell got fat, and then he retired, and the Cobra Dave Parker is now dealing coke in the clubhouse with the help of the parrot mascot or something like that. And the Penguins are garbage and losing to the Islanders in 82. That's my first real visceral. I remember the Super Bowls and all of that, 13 and 14. I don't remember the first two that the Steelers won, but the one that really crushed me, and it's right up there still, was when the Penguins, the rando Penguins of 1982 had the juggernaut New York Islanders. They rally in the best of 5 series from down 2 games. They force a game 5 on the island, and they're up 3-1 with 6 minutes to go. They were winning 3-1, and they blow the lead. Goes to overtime. John Tonelli scores the win. They could have changed NHL history, but you make the case if they get that, then they have a different level of confidence, and then they probably don't go down far enough to draft Mario Lemieux 2 years later. So I guess it all works out. And then things started to turn back up. But yeah, it's been a rugged ride. There was great times in the late 70s. Then the Stanley Cups, notwithstanding, the Pirates and Steelers weren't real good. And that I guess kind of is the Cliff's Notes version of how we got to here.
Yeah, you mentioned good genes. 50 shades of not much gray on you, Dave. You're looking good for 50, almost 51 years old here.
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, I look at that. Look at the
So not much gray. Not much. A little bit of the beard. You know, Walt Clyde Frazier could hook you up with some Just for Men if need
the second person this week to say.
Joe's very excited about his Knicks, but I wanted to get you're well known for your beard. I wanted to get your take on Joe's beard.
I mean, it's strong. The thing that bugs me about the beard is that I get a lot of tweets and whatever, social media, people hit me up to say, like, you look exactly like that guy. It's like, I don't look like every single person who's ever had a beard. You look like the one who I get a lot of, and it's a slap in the face, but I'm going to say it forward, is I can't think of his name, Billy. He might be dead. The one infomercial guy who has all the products.
Billy Mays.
Is he alive or dead?
He's dead.
I think he died on he died on a plane, like getting his luggage out of the top, the carry-on section.
It's a terrible way to go. It's a terrible way to go.
I'm pretty sure that.
How does one die doing that?
Heart attack, I think.
Yeah, he had a heart attack, I believe.
Wait. Why in hell does Nick know about the demise of Billy Mays? Like
national headlines, Billy Mays.
I remember. Yeah, it was a big story.
So wait, we live in a society where it's acceptable for, I mean, these are billion-dollar operations. These sports franchises,
right?
You know,
right.
We let one of our 4 major sports leagues in North America. Our media and otherwise just lets everybody get away with like, oh, he's out week to week. What? Week to week? What does that mean? Like, yeah, upper body injury. What do you mean upper body injury? Like, well, that's that. Can't nowhere else to go with that. We can't but Nick knows how Billy Mays checked out. Weird.
Yeah, heart attack on an airplane.
Getting his luggage down. Maybe I should start worrying about that.
Yeah, I believe cocaine was a factor though. So we shall see. We'll have to investigate into that a little more. Okay. But yeah, be careful getting the luggage down. Now you make the move out to California. So I'm sure it was tough to leave Pittsburgh. You're doing stuff, as Joe mentioned, for Comedy Central. We eventually get linked up with Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel doing The Man Show and eventually Crank Yankers, which is back, by the way. But I really wanted to ask you, and I hope you don't take offense to this, is Jimmy Kimmel a sellout? Has the Disney money gone to his head? Ooh. Has he ever big-timed you? And does he owe a lot of, if not all of his success to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, not big timing, I don't think is the right thing, because he always, the first time I met him, he said, I have a standing rule that you're not allowed to make eye contact with me. That's not personal. I don't like for most civilians to make eye contact with. So you have to keep your eyes. No. He says, like what you hear. Yeah, but what you hear about that guy, he says, much a mensch as big a mensch as you'll ever meet in the world. And no, he's a lovely fella. Now, Adam Carolla, he's another story. No, both swell fellas. That's basically my story since I moved out here, is getting lucky, meeting nice fellas like those two and cousin Sal. And and all of that. Just that's basically the way it went. But I actually did. I'm trying to think. No, I guess you're right. I did do Comedy Central before I actually hooked up with those guys. You know my history better than I know my own.
Yeah, you know I'm right. It's the name of the show.
Right.
So we got to make sure we know our facts here. Now, when you're making the move out to California, did you ever think, because you're such a big sports fan, oh, maybe I'll be able to work in sports one day? Or are you going out there with the mindset of, let me pursue this comedy path and see what happens?
Actually, hockey played Penguins and Islanders playoff games loomed large in my life. I was debating leaving right after I graduated college. I was debating Chicago. I had found a nice apartment, was about to sign a lease, and with my pal and go. But in Pittsburgh, my other friends, they had a new apartment. They said, "Hey, you can move in with us." And one was a bartender, and we would go there every night and drink free booze, and he'd slide us some free wings. And we were watching the Pens in the playoffs. I was like, it's going to be hard. Can I turn my back on this? And Game 7, David Volek scored for the Islanders to knock the two-time Stanley Cup champion Penguins 11 years after the Penguins almost did the deed to the Islanders. The Islanders did do it to the Penguins. And it was that night I decided, okay, I'm going to move to Chicago. I'm not going to stick around here now that the Penguins are out of the playoffs. And so I signed that lease and moved to Chicago, and then wound up from there. Yeah, then I met a woman who, after many years of me being in Chicago, she moved to LA. She's like, I moved to LA. I'm like, what am I going to do out there? I have no job out there. And she said, try comedy writing. And I was like, well, I don't have a degree in comedy writing. And she said, guess what? Nobody else has a degree in comedy writing. It's a crapshoot. So I said, you know what? I don't like the idea of it, but I like the current job I'm doing even less. So I may as well do it. So I moved out there. And yeah, the first job I got was writing on a Fox Sports trivia show that was supposed to be kind of comedic in nature, supposed to be cutesy and funny. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is the greatest gig ever. I'll dominate the room because it's supposed to be funny, but it's going to be a bunch of sports nerds on a cable trivia show. And I went in, and the other guys in there were Cousin Sal, Kevin Hench, who I now do -3 with, who's one of the funniest comedy writers in the business of the 21st century, and a couple other ringers. And I remember thinking, like, literally a half an hour in to my first day on this show, I was like, this is the level of talent, how funny the people are who write on a sports trivia show. I'm doomed. I may as well pack my bags and just go back and see if that lease is still available for me in the Midwest, because it was overwhelming. So I thought, yeah, that's going to be awesome. But yeah, then I got intimidated by it, and then, Man Show and Jimmy Kimmel Live and all that stuff detoured me until I returned back to doing sports radio and all of that.
And then you also Adam Carolla, which is, I mean, like I said at the beginning, Comedy Central is no longer what it is, unfortunately. And I think you are partly responsible for probably the golden age of that network.
Yes. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption to make.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And by the way, good luck ever getting hired by Comedy Central again. Joey C is the one saying these things, Comedy Central, not Dave D. Please make a note of that.
I'm not that funny. At least I don't think so anyway. All my friends
that
usually
beard is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do have a question. So at some point in my life, I was told that the closest doppelganger to me is Jimmy Kimmel. And considering you've been around him and you know who he is, I want your fair assessment. I think there's a resemblance. I don't think I look like him, but I do think that there is a resemblance. So
it's funny. It's funny you say that, because we were just talking about this, Sal and myself, and we were talking about who our doppelgangers are, and that led us to. There's something about Jimmy. He gets a ton of those. Like there's some faces are more like you remind me of than other people are. And I do see it. You got his eyes. That's what it is.
Oh, wow.
You have his eyes. You have his brother. Well, not surprisingly, his brother has those eyes.
Like his face, like up here, right? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. I
I kind of do like the droopy side smile a lot, but a lot of people like that, so I mean, at first I didn't see it, but then I've had other people say like, no, I see it. And then, when somebody tells you you look like somebody, you don't believe it at first. You're like, no, like you had with Billy Mays. But, I do appreciate that.
Yeah. The beard really opens up a whole new level of insults. People always tell me I look like Franco Harris because he and I took a picture once together, and apparently he looks like my father and that to a lot of people. But I definitely see it. The one I also see for Jimmy Kimmel is former Major League pitcher Vicente Padilla. I think if you look him up, look at him, and you'll be like, what?
You're right. I agree. I see it. I definitely see it. So after your time at Comedy Central, you went back home for a little bit, and then you went back to LA. Kind of bounced around back and forth.
No, always in LA. I've been here now for 20 years.
You were here 20 years, so you didn't go back to Pittsburgh to host the show?
No, actually. Well, now his name is showing up a ton in here. Sorry for the name drop, but yes, I took not overnight. It was I took a radio show in Pittsburgh for a startup radio station, and they said, well, you have to move out here, obviously, to do it. And I always wanted to do Pittsburgh sports radio, and I've almost moved out there a couple of times in the last 20 years. But this particular one, they wanted me to move there. And I said, you're just starting up. I'm not going to move out there to see how well the station in general does. And I said, what if I can get on an ISDN line? I don't know if people still use those, but 15 years ago, they were a thing and they were a big box that you would hook up, and basically they could wire you in and with good, clean sound into anywhere. And so the only issue then was I didn't have an ISDN line, and Jimmy Kimmel said, I have one. If you want to use my spare bedroom to use it, you can. And it made for a fun show right out of the gate, like first show of the 5-night-a-week show. Was like, hey, Pittsburgh, I'm a new radio guy here. I'm coming at you from Jimmy Kimmel's spare basement in the hills of Hollywood. It was on one hand maybe a little too fancy. On the other hand, it was so whimsical and weird that I think it immediately gave the show a certain charm. So that was a fun one. Yeah, no. So I was actually, I never left LA, but I was getting pumped in on ISDN to Pittsburgh, and it was in the hills. And if you remember, that was the age when there were like blackouts, when they would do those grid blackouts in California. If you ever heard about those, I think they were kind of national news. And periodically I would just be on there and you just would hear like, pew, and be like, what happened? Oh, the power went out. And I would just go dead on the air in Pittsburgh because the ISDN went out in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah. And, before there was the boss, Rick Ross, it was you and Ken Voss doing some Fox Sports Radio at the same time there. As you're making your radio debut, You're doing the Jimmy Kimmel segments on the Fox NFL pregame show, which I think really launched him into superstardom. What do you remember about that period of your career?
I mean, that was super fun, getting to do, because I feel like this is basically now turning into a genuflecting conversation about Jimmy Kimmel, but really, I mean, he's
forget about Jimmy.
He's a mensch, because I wouldn't have done it. Really, you asked the question 10 minutes ago, and really, how do I want getting back into sports? Warming up in LA, talking about sport was really, I was right in the Man Show, and one day Kimmel said, "Hey, come with me," and we went to do. He said, my buddy is doing an audition for ESPN Radio here in LA. That guy, as it turns out, it was and is Matt Money Smith, who's now the voice of the Los Angeles Chargers, and you see him on TV and everything else talking football. And he brought me to watch the audition of this guy, and Jimmy sat in with him for a couple of segments and all of that sort of thing. And on the way home, back to the Man Show writing day, he said, I brought you because I feel like this is what you should do. You should talk for a living. You should talk about sports for a living, and this is what you should chase. It was a very nice way of saying, you're a terrible comedy writer. Please do anything else. If I show you another possible career, will you maybe take it and leave me alone and stop ruining my show? No. So that, and so he said you really should chase that, and guess who his good friend was? Kent Voss. Kent Voss and Jimmy Kimmel used to do a radio show together, and he linked us up, and we chased some stuff, and he and I ended up doing overnight radio for just one summer on Fox Sports Radio, but it was great. I just never had that experience, and so it was eye-opening, and I really loved doing it, and from that became Carolla's sidekick on his radio show, and things kind of detoured away from writing to some degree into the foolishness in which I now do.
Yeah, that was the time where everybody kind of started getting away from the typical normal TV thing that they were doing. That's kind of when podcasts really started.
Right.
You got in on the ground floor, I think, because I think there was a period there for about 3, 4, 5 years where people knew that they existed, but they weren't nearly as big as they are. And I think your crew, in particular, especially, and I'll include Simmons in here too, and we'll get to him later. You guys were really the first ones who were on the ground level there and got really, really popular. So, kudos to you. You guys were very ahead of the curve, and I think you've built a really strong following that has, stood with you guys since.
Yeah, I mean, by comparison, I am much less successful than all those guys. But but yeah, that's a good point. I guess I haven't really considered that, but right, I started doing ESPN radio, and from that, my show would then turn into the Page 2 podcast because it was sort of national in tenor more than it was focused on just LA sports, and so that went to Page 2. But yeah, I mean, obviously Simmons can't be doing any better than he is, and Carolla really jumped in on it at just the right time. Like, what was it now, 11, 12 years ago? So yeah, good point.
I think it was 2009 or 2010. But speaking of 2010, that was the year you went to NFL Network, and you started there, and you were brought along there with Michael Fabiano, and you were a fantasy analyst. And then from there, you obviously, that led into the Dave Dameshek football program, which had a very highly successful run there for 9 years. Continuously did other types of stuff there, like the Shame Report, your Sheck Report, on NFL Network. Though that stuff was really great. But I want to ask how that NFL opportunity came about for you.
That it's funny, the names that I invoke in a prior story keep coming back around. I was sitting in for Matt Money Smith, and Petros Papadakis were off that day. They have a great afternoon drive show here in Los Angeles, and I was filling in for them one day, and off of that, I got a call from a guy this is real, a guy from the NFL Network named Tom Brady, not the Tom Brady, but imagine.
Tom Brady calls you from the Patriots.
From the NFL. So yeah, I was like, who is the joker making this call? But he heard me on the radio, and he said, we're starting up a fantasy show, and we have our expert guys, but we want somebody who's more foolish. And so it'll be once a week kind of thing. And I started doing that, and from there I pitch a lot. I have a ton of terrible ideas at a given time, and I just kept pitching them to Tom Brady and otherwise, and they liked a couple of them. One was the Shame Report, another one was the the what if kind of stuff, like what if the Tuck rule had gone the Raiders' way, how would it have affected history, and an animated thing. And they kept signing off on those and adding more to my plate. And to the point that over the next 2 years or so that it was getting to be just an insane workload between that and the Kimmel show. And then one fall, Norm Macdonald started up his sports comedy show on Comedy Central. And I was chirping in on that as well. So that one fall was really crazy. And it all kind of came to a head, like, choose one and devote yourself to that. And so the NFL kind of won out there. And that's how I went kind of more full bore in with the NFL and left the Kimmel show and all the other stuff.
Sounds like our guy Adnan. He's got too much on his plate. He's eventually going to have to choose between something,
Yeah, and the workhorse.
The workhorse.
He's the huge movie guy, right?
Movies, yeah. WWE,
Cinephile podcast, yeah. He's
NFL,
the voice of
NHL.
Monday Night Raw.
Oh,
That's
is
wild.
he?
It's
Excellent. Good for him. Yeah.
started a couple of weeks ago. Definitely, you remind me of him in that sense, where he does MLB Network, does Monday Night Raw, he does this Cinephile podcast. I mean, he does a ton of things. He's always got something to do. Always got so much on his plate. But there are people like that who are just wired to do that, and you're definitely one of those people. So kudos to you.
Yeah, well, jack of all trades, master of none. That's as they say, Yeah, too many interests. Probably better off to choose one and just focus on that. But too late now.
So the football program had a 9-year run. You had a lot of people on there through the years. A lot of people who worked at NFL Network, writers, TV hosts, personalities, celebrities. What are some of your most memorable episodes or people that you had on that you were really happy or proud to have on?
Ooh, I mean, start off with, like I say, I'm nostalgic for, as anybody is, to get to meet the guys who you worshipped as a kid, all those Steelers. I've gotten to meet them all. I was at Canton once, and they made me, because everything is has legitimate value there to football fans. So they when they take you through all the nooks and crannies of the Hall of Fame, they make you wear white gloves. And so as I was doing that, I just became obsessed with my white gloves, that I had to have white gloves on anywhere. And then by the end of me in the white gloves that day, they were starting the induction ceremony. And so all the guys who are already in show up in their gold jackets, and they bring them out from backstage. And so while I was back there with a camera and a microphone, I just started saying, I was interviewing them. I was like, forget the Hall of Fame. This is now the Hand of Fame. And so I have a white glove with talking to Mean Joe Green. Hey, can you sign my hand? And he's like, why you want me to sign your hand? And they all thought it was weird, and explaining it to these football legends. Funny. And then Joe Namath, I don't want to sign your hand. Why would I? I'm like, well, I see Joe Green's name on here, so I better do it. By the way, how much do you think that glove is worth right now? Do you think it's Steve Largent, John Randall, Mean Joe, Namath, a couple other, Carl Eller? I think it's really stupid. That was kind of the goal, was, as I would always say, whoever it was sitting down with me, the push and pull of it is that, the guys get it. They don't want to be made to look stupid mostly, but they get it that you're just playing grab ass with them. But teams are very nervous. They treat their players, especially their quarterbacks, like they're senatorial candidates. Like, we can't put him in the room, and that could get, and you're supposed to be funny, and we don't know about all that. But as I would always say to them, and the bigger the star, the funnier it would be, is I'm always going to be the dummy. I'm never going to make you look dumb. I will always be the dummy. And so, going to some of my favorite stuff was going to at Super Bowl week, was at the media day stuff, asking all the players and coaches one by one if the Super Bowl is a must-win game, and having Pete Carroll it's Super Bowl, man. It's a must-win game. And stupid stuff like that. And around Deflategate, asking all the Patriots if they were pumped up for the game. And they're like, yeah, man, better be pumped up. And asking Vince Wilfork, who's more handsome, Tom Brady or Jimmy Garoppolo. He's like, I don't have any opinion on dudes, man. And then asking Gronk, and Gronk going let me check it out. Look, Tom Brady's standing up over there. Look, even from behind, he's beautiful. Those moments were, I guess, the most fun. But yeah, getting the kibitz and see the guys. You always hear people talk about I don't root for a team. I root for the good guys of the league. It is nice to land on that guy is super funny. Not so funny for a football player, but he's a funny guy and a cool guy and a nice guy. Figuring out that most of those guys, most players are like most human beings, which is most are nice guys looking to have a laugh and not taking themselves too seriously. So that was kind of my role, asking them about what their favorite breakfast meat was, and letting everybody else try and divine why the pull play works so well against blank team. I left all that X's and O's to everybody else.
In your career, TV, radio, anybody come to mind as just a horrible interview, someone who gives you absolutely nothing and you're just like, oh, let's wrap it up. Let's get this person out of here.
I remember not really, because mostly they pretty early on will sense that I'm not trying to just ask them like, you've lost 2 in a row. Now, how do you bounce back this week? Like, talk about what this win means. I always love, that's my favorite question is, talk about how much this win means to you. Like how should I respond to that? Like in 1 to 10, like, should I give it a letter grade how I feel? Like very, will that do? Like very matters very much. Like, so they all got pretty clear that that wasn't what I was going to ask them about. I do, the time not to catch guys, if you want to get their personality for the most part, is when they're doing promotion stuff, like for whatever product they're doing. They get sat down in a chair for like 4 hours in a row, and they just hang out interview after interview in like 8-minute chunks. They're not in the mood to play grab ass then. And I do remember once Peyton Manning was doing that, and I had been making fun of, like, he said, I'd been giving him the business. Like, listen, he doesn't come up big in the big games, and that had become sort of a narrative around him that season that they ended up winning the Super Bowl. And he said, whoever came up with that narrative can stick that one where the sun don't shine. I had a book made up, and at the Super Bowl, I went up to him with a book saying like, Peyton Manning doesn't come up big in the big spots by Peyton Manning or something like that, or by Dave Dameshek. And I showed it to him. I'm like, look, Peyton, I'm the one who wrote the book. Can I take it out yet? Like, nope, keep it there. And so I thought, all right, so, we're on good terms. But then we were sitting down in the preseason, and he was on satellite talking and promoting whatever he was promoting, doing his thing. And you could hear him on the talk back. You can hear him through the microphone as I'm sitting on the stage waiting for this Manning interview. And he's like, well, who do we have next? And you hear the PR person say, NFL Network. And he said, oh, who's doing the interview? And he said, the person says, Dave Dameshek. He's like, cancel that one. And that was the end of my Peyton Manning interview. So apparently Peyton, it is funny to find, that's another, it's funny. Like most guys, like, I don't care what fans say. It's funny that like Peyton, Kobe Bryant, there's certain guys who would use it as fuel. Like, hater, I will know their names and show them up. Like, you really care what I think, Peyton Manning? What do you care what this schnook thinks? But anyway, that was a funny one.
Maybe you inspired a nationwide commercial on him or something. Because you can't even watch. It's so hard to watch an NFL game because every commercial break you got to be Peyton Manning. It's too much at this point, in my opinion. But I wanted to ask you, Dave, what is the worst type of fan? Is it any sort of Philadelphia fan? Is it a Cowboys fan? Is it a Lakers fan? Or is it a New York Yankees fan?
Oh,
you just described Michael Fabiano right there. He's all of the above that you just listed there. And on what that's kind of one kind of stinking fan. Like, hey, when I was 11, the teams that won all the titles. Those are my teams forever now. Like, where's your soul, man? Yeah, it's one thing if they just so happen you happen to be living in the Tampa St. Pete area in 2020 and 2021, then you get lucky and you can just claim those. I guess I point the finger at other people for that, but I did, as we've talked about, got inordinately lucky. When the lights went on, it was like, oh yeah, you're from the city of champions. You have legends, icons, and pop stars and Steelers and Penguins. Maybe one will be good. The bad kind of fan is I've been talking about this for the last couple of years. I get it, New York sports fans, but by a hair worse are Philadelphia fans, and Boston fans are getting a little bit of this too. And I'm a little bummed out to say, even in Pittsburgh, the local media is getting in on this too. But I really do think like we're passionate, and that's why we're a great sports town. We're Philadelphia. It's like you guys pride yourselves on our local media is tough, and so is our fan base, and we ain't for everybody. You may not be able to hack it. Like, is that good? Are you sure like you could have had a good player, but you scared him out of town? Are you Are you contributing too much, fans? Are you being a little narcissistic about what diehards you are? Wait, you're such a tough sports town that you scare viable players out of it? That's not good to do. You're proud of this? I don't think so. It'd be one thing if you were super successful, but you're not. You're Philadelphia. You're the Flyers. You're the Sixers. You're the Eagles, who had that one season, and you're the Phillies. You sure the results are living up to what you expect? I get that you like to have an influence on things, but I suspect you've gone a little bit too far. New York also, a little bit like that whole thing. There are several big name free agents that have gone up through New York and Philly, and it's been like, oh, he couldn't hack it. It was just too intense. The media environment and the fan, like, well, then that's bad on the local media for scaring away a guy who might have, for all you know, might have won you a championship otherwise.
From what I could tell, a flyer is a cheerleader, someone who flies in the air. If a flyer was to fight a penguin in a fight, who wins and why?
Well, so wait. You think it's a cheerleader?
There is a thing called a flyer in cheerleading. They fly,
Yes.
they get tossed up in the air. I don't know what an actual Philadelphia flyer is, though.
I'll go with that then. I'm going to go with that. At least they can move like penguins. Do you ever see them move? Like, no, they're not catching anybody.
Right.
Certainly not somebody who's over their head and flying down at them like Spider-Man off the third floor rooftop onto a bad guy. I guess I have to take that. Otherwise, though, I'll take a penguin over a flyer in every other possible possibility.
Yeah, I hate to agree, but as a
They're worse. They the Islanders. People are like, oh, you hate. I get accused by foot. You hate my team. I don't hate any pro football team. I hate the Flyers. I hate the Islanders, and I hate Penn State football. Those are my three things I hate.
Wow. Penn State. I did not expect that. That's interesting. I mean,
Well,
you're in Indiana, obviously.
No. Well, I'm an Indiana guy, but I am a dyed-in-the-wool Pitt guy. I spent, I lived at Pitt Stadium and Fitzgerald Fieldhouse both, and you choose. Yeah, a lot of people from Pittsburgh go to Penn State, but you don't go to Penn. They're bitter rivals. People, you guys are probably too young. That was one of the best rivalries going. 20 years ago. It's kind of died off now, but yeah, my hatred for Jopa and all things Penn State continues to burn hot.
You left the NFL last year and you joined your buddy Cousin Sal at the Extra Points podcast network, which has done a really, really good job of getting off the ground so far. And I know I've spoken with Eddie Spaghetti Murphy about this. But I've been an avid follower of you guys since you guys started last year. I think your content is really great. You mentioned the people that you work with before. I think Rachel Bonetta is absolutely hilarious. Obviously you guys got Jerry Ferrera in there, and I'm a huge Entourage fan. So I'm checking out what you guys are doing, and I think it's absolutely terrific so far. So when did Sal kind of pull you over and say, I'm going to break away? Because he had Against All Odds on The Ringer with Simmons, and then he moved that to his own network and kind of formulated and brought everybody together. So when did he come up to you and have a conversation saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my own gambling network, and we're going to get this thing off the ground, and I want you to be front and center with me on our main show?
We started talking about it in what would that have been? 2 football seasons ago. That's how I keep track of everything, is by what sports season it is. And it was 2 football seasons ago. We were kibitzing about it, and it really is. Like I mentioned, I was in Chicago, and I do remember when I was 22 and had signed that lease in Chicago and left Pittsburgh and living with a college chum, and some of our other pals had moved up to the north side of Chicago. And I remember sitting around late at night, as we would do at 4:30 in the morning, boozing and otherwise. And I remember we would have a recurring conversation, like as I was bartending, and one guy's working at a grocery store and so on. And we would talk about, like, what should we do? We were out of college, but what should we do for our lives? And it was incidental what we were doing, what the work was. It was sort of like, let's all just find, if we can all find our ways into business together. And in fact, then I concocted, like, this is a good sitcom premise too, but what if we all pick the worst town in America and we all move there? So we're all equally miserable. But if it's small enough and it's sucked enough, our combined power in a decade from now will rule the town. Like we'll be like the bad guy in Roadhouse. We'll own this town, and no one will be able to do anything about it. The goal was, let's work together, work with your pals, and then you're cheating life. And that's really what I've been impossibly lucky with. The getting the app about grew up loving sports from the second. I had a choice. That was my first thing, and then I would put the VHS before DVRs. Guys, there was this thing with the VHS tapes.
We know we're not that young.
And I would set it every night to record Letterman. So before I would go to school, I would watch the previous night's Letterman. So I was loved watching late night shows and loved watching sports, and got to do both of those, right for a late night show and flap my gums about sports. I got lucky with that, but better than that is I've gotten to work for the last 20 years with all my pals. And so this was a chance to get to do that. And we're so happy that Eddie Spaghetti jumped over with us. And it's a good time based on that. Even if we were, counting beans, I think it would be more fun to be doing it with the gang we have. But on top of that, we also then get to talk about sports. So it's been glorious. Possible good luck, like I say, for the last 20 years where my career's concerned.
I'm very happy that you've taken really good care of my best friend out there. He's very, very happy. I know he's really, really happy. And you guys are as connected as the freaking Gambino crime family. You guys got your hand in everything over there. So, but no, seriously, I mean this with all sincerity. I'm really happy for all the success that you guys have. I think you guys are immensely entertaining. I mean that about Sal and the degenerate trifecta, and like I said, everybody that I mentioned before. So
you like me better than Sal if you had to choose, right?
Yeah, I'd say
okay.
So. But I've also met you in person. I don't know how he is in person. I don't know how he's like, face to face. So
much less impressed.
Right. Hopefully one day we'll have the opportunity to do that. But before we let you go, we had a great time because right now Pirates season has started, even though they're 4.5 games back out.
Hey, they started better than anybody could have thought. They've already won more games than anybody expected them to over the
That's
entire.
True.
Phillip Evans is a superstar. I trade him to the Yankees.
Well, you'll get him soon. Like I said, anything that is halfway worth anything to the Yankees or the Red Sox and Dodgers and all those, you'll soon have them.
So I want to talk to you about the Steelers draft real quick. How did you like primarily their first and second round picks? Because I think Najee Harris is like prototypical classic Steelers running back type pick. I think he's going to be exceptional, especially if that offensive line can stay healthy. I could see him being a Derrick Henry type. It's going to be very hard to emulate Derrick Henry, but I think he's going to have a very similar impact for that team. And you guys have been looking to replace Heath Miller now for the last couple of seasons. You tried it with Vance McDonald. You tried it with Eric Ebron, even though he wasn't so bad. But you took Penn State tight end Pat Freiermuth in the second round. So how do you feel about the Steelers draft?
I think I probably like it a little bit more than a lot of people have, and it all hinges on whether or not you can accept the notion of a pro football team using its first round pick on a running back, which is a difference making position. If you would have told me through 2 rounds they still hadn't taken an offensive lineman, I would have needed a deeper explanation about what was going on. I feel like the hard and fast rule, you can't take a running back in the first round. It's really anecdotal because that conversation has rolled so far, and there is a replaceability element to the position at this point. But that, to me, also doesn't mean that you can't that there isn't value in that running back if he lasts for 4 or 5 years. The stake is the second big contract. If you tie yourself in after that guy, this sounds nihilistic, and we're talking about human beings here, but that's the way it breaks. I would say if you're a 17-year-old and you're a 5-star football player, don't go into being a running back, be a defensive back or a wide receiver. You're not going to get as banged up, and you have more value when your second contract comes along. But that's not as, maybe as glib as that sounds from the, football team side of things. It's not your responsibility to worry about that. And so if they get 4 good years out of Najee Harris, and it's funny, Spaghetti's heard me say this a million times, and I'll say it to you for the million and first now. Nobody, or like 99% of people who love football, have no ability to assess how good an offensive line is. You just go off of what the people who played the position tell you, and a very few civilians can actually assess that guy's really going to be, a dominant left tackle. The rest of us are just going off of the word of anybody else. We have no idea. But these same people who are banging the table about like, they needed the Panay School. Why did the Bengals not do that? They're crazy for not. You really know the difference between Panay School and the 4th-rated tackle who they could get in the 2nd round. And those same people who are sure that there's a difference between the 1st and 4th-rated offensive tackle somehow can't see the distinction between Najee Harris and the 4th back, Gainwell, or whoever you think it is in this past draft. There were 3 high pedigree backs, and then there were some other Sermon and guys like that in the draft. The Steelers didn't want the crapshoot. They've tried that for the last 3 years. It hasn't worked out. The results are in. The Steelers are also they're not the Panthers drafting CMC. They're not the Giants taking Saquon Barkley. Those 2 teams had high 1st-round picks because they were bad teams. And so they were overly optimistic about how transformational a high running back can be. And what you see with both of those guys, especially with Saquon, is that's the risk of a running back, is that more, because of the nature of what they're doing, they're more likely to go down with injuries. And so that's the weird value thing to me with that. But the Steelers are not in the same position as those teams were. The Steelers, for as much cynicism as there is about like, oh, Roethlisberger's finished and this team thinks it can go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, the team that won the division last year and was 11-0. Yeah, it's not insane to think that they can be competitive come this January. So I think they're closer to that. And also I can pick apart all the arguments one by one. The Patriots don't win the Super Bowl in 2018 if they didn't draft Sony Michel. They rode him in those playoffs. Now they're not picking up his 5th-year option. Ask a Patriots fan if it was worth it, though. You're not drafting a 15-year guy at quarterback who, if everything works out contractually and otherwise. But now we're seeing the pitfalls of doing that. You stay in business too long with your prima donna quarterback, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, everybody else. This is a trend that can't be ignored at this point. You have to adjust your eye and expectation. Think 5 years. If you get 5 good years out of Najee Harris in the age of free agency, the attrition rate in the 21st century, then you have made a great pick. I think Najee Harris, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think he is a difference maker on an offense that had a really hard time running the ball last year. And yes, offensive line was bad, but there is also a minimum standard that the Steelers weren't reaching with Benny Snell and James Conner. They needed to upgrade the talent at that position.
You don't miss Le'Veon Bell at all. That guy is horrible. He's screwed up. But the last question here is going to be, if you had to pick and you can only get one, you want a Pirates championship, a Steelers championship, or a Penguins? I think it's an easy answer if I'm thinking your shoes here, but what's your answer here?
I'd settle at this point if you guys could talk to Eddie Spaghetti out of ever wearing a tank top again. That's not become for a grown man. He walks around on purpose in a tank top all the time.
All the time.
Not even like it's one thing like, the laundry dirty is the only way, but it's all the time. And I try to remind him he is in fact a grown up now. So it's weird, but changes for me with that ebbs and flows for me. I weirdly would love to see the Pitt Panthers basketball team make a Final Four run. That's something I've never seen. So that's really high on my list. It might surprise you. Right now, man, I'm so swept up in the about to start NHL playoffs. I would love to see Crosby and Malkin get one more and solidify themselves.
I mean, if they
as
do it
the
one more,
generation's best team. Then there would be no debate.
Gretzky did it 4 times.
You know, I don't even think about it from that perspective, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you know,
they're tied
in
for
this
first place,
generation,
too.
when you look back at it, who's the team of the 21st century now? The Hawks might claim it. The Kings might. If the Pens would get a fourth,
Blackhawks or the Penguins, yeah. And if the Penguins do get the fourth, I would agree with you. They would be the team of the 21st century, right?
but
Dave, when
I think I got to go. If it's in the next year, like I can tell you that you definitely get one, and then your other teams are all going to stink this next for the next year.
Yes.
Giving it harsher terms, I think we'd go Steelers just because
I'm more for Big Ben.
Yeah, I'd love to shove it up the.
I thought you were going to go Pirates.
So many people.
I thought you were going Pirates all the way.
Nah, listen, at some point I have to have dignity, and the Pirates haven't tried for so long. What am I? I'm not. I'm loyal, but I'm not an abject sucker either. I mean, they go years without even trying to win games. They're like, you're still paying attention to us? The ownership groups, like the Nutty family's like, you guys are watching this crap? See, I guess we don't have to ever try if you're going to continue to watch this junk product. Yeah, I'd really, man, I'd love to see the Steelers, especially because here's what I say. Rodgers is going to wind up with Denver. And even if he doesn't, but if he does, and the Broncos are immediately a scary team, and Herbert's Chargers are going to be good, and obviously the Chiefs, and obviously the Bills and the Browns are going to be good, and the Ravens are right there. I would love, and especially in a loaded AFC, for them to make one more run. If they could win a Super Bowl this year, I know they have no chance. They have no chance of winning the Super Bowl. All right, in our hypothetical year upcoming year, let's buck that. No chance. If they would win it, it would be very funny.
And there you have it. Shek, thanks for doing this with us, man. We really appreciate it. We usually give our guests here the last words. There's plenty for you to share, promote, but whatever's on your mind, feel free, go right ahead. You know, we really appreciate you coming on doing this with us again.
All right, next time let's have an intervention, and we've got it. Spaghetti has gone too far with the Pearl Jam stuff. It's too. Listen, like what you like. I don't care. I'm not going to get in your way. Look, I like Penguins hockey. I have my passions, but it's too much already. And like we already said, the tank tops. Come on.
He loves what he loves.
Grow.
Always been the same way.
Grow up. Also, we have to talk to him about his eating. Ooh, it's getting out of hand.
I'll get to that.
All right, Dave, we appreciate you. That's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our special guest, Dave. For my co-host, Joe, I am Nick, and this has been You Know I'm Right.